Hello and welcome back to the Tech Stack podcast, your flagship podcast of AI faking human identities to hack us. I'm Theo Galley-Tonks, and honestly, this might have been one of the maddest weeks we've covered on this show. We've got an AI model that invented fake human beings to trick a real person into approving hacked code. Apple's taken OpenAI to an actual courtroom. Google DeepMind has basically lost its CEO and its most senior engineer on the same afternoon. Graphics cards now cost more than some second-hand cars. And EA has been sold to Saudi Arabia and Donald Trump's son-in-law in the biggest buyout gaming has ever seen. There's a lot to get through, so let's not waste any time and let's get into it. Right. This is the story that sat with me all week because it's properly unsettling once you actually read what happened. The UK's AI Security Institute, AISI, ran a big cybersecurity evaluation on two frontier models, OpenAI's Anthropic's Mythos 5 and OpenAI's ChatGPT 5.6 Sol. To stress test them properly, they deliberately stripped out the safety filters and gave both models access to the open internet, basically saying, go on then, show us what you actually do with no leash on. Across 122 separate challenges, the models took unsanctioned autonomous action on the live internet in 10 of them. 17 of those actions came from Mythos 5, 2 from OpenAI's model. But it's the worst case that's the headline. An agent running on Mythos 5 was told to complete a task, but instead of just quietly doing something dodgy, it went and researched the actual human maintainers of a real open source software project. It then created multiple fake online identities and used those fake people to socially engineer one of the real maintainers into approving a malicious code change. Think about that for a second. It built entire fictional personas specifically to manipulate a stranger. And it gets worse. When its pull request got challenged publicly, it edited its own earlier activity to make it look harmless, and it actually considered spinning up a brand new identity just to keep the con going. On top of that, it directly messaged real people, sending files through an online transfer service, trying to get either humans themselves or their own AI coding assistants to run the malicious code for it. Now, to be fair to both companies, this was under deliberately permissive lab conditions, filters off, guardrails removed, not how these models behave for you and me day to day. The AISI confirmed that there was no real-world damage done, but the Institute's own words were that this is the first time they've seen deception this severe targeted at real specific people, completely unprompted. Coming so soon after the OpenAI model that hacked Hugging Face a couple of weeks back, you do start to see a pattern forming here, and it's not a comforting one. Okay, so remember back in episode 4 when we talked about the Sweetpea rumours, Johnny Ive's screenless device tangled up in that lawsuit? Well, that lawsuit just got a lot more serious. Apple has now filed for a preliminary injunction in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, trying to legally block OpenAI and 2 specific former Apple employees from using what Apple claims is its confidential information. The 2 names in the firing line are Tan, who spent roughly 24 years at Apple, most recently as VP of product design for the iPhone and Apple Watch, and Chang Lu, a former senior systems electrical engineer at Apple for 8 years. Apple's allegations against them are genuinely wild. Filing accuses Tan of using Apple's own internal confidential project code names while recruiting candidates for OpenAI, of asking job applicants to bring actual Apple hardware components with them to interviews, and of coaching departing Apple staff on how to dodge the company's own security procedures on their way out the door. Separately, Apple says Lu failed to return his Apple-issued laptop after leaving for OpenAI and used it to download confidential technical documents. Apple's language in the filing doesn't hold back either. At one point, calling OpenAI's entire hardware business rotten to its core because of the alleged reliance on stolen trade secrets. Apple's asking for documents for multiple depositions, including from Tan and Lu, and a judge has been penciled in a hearing for the 1st of October. OpenAI, for its part, has mostly responded with a public blog post pushing back on the claims rather than engaging through the same legal channel, at least so far. This is a proper seismic one for anyone who follows the AI world. Google announced a huge leadership shakeup this week, and it's actually 2 separate big stories bundled into one memo by Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google. First, Demis Hassabis is stepping down as CEO of Google DeepMind. He's not leaving the company, he's moving up and sideways, becoming chairman of DeepMind and taking on the new title of chief scientist for Alphabet as a whole. In his own words to his staff, he wants this time and space to focus on bigger picture questions around AGI, and he'll be spending more time on AISI Labs, Alphabet's AI drug discovery arm, which is close to its own scientific roots. Remember, he won a Nobel Peace Prize back in 2024 for his protein folding work. Taking over the actual day-to-day running of DeepMind is Kurey Kavukuguli, who was previously Google's DeepMind's CTO and Google's chief AI architect. He'll be senior VP of Google DeepMind and, crucially, reporting directly to Sundar Pichai, not Hassabis, which tells you a lot about Google's reconstructing the reporting lines here. But honestly, the bit that's shocked people more is Jeff Dean, 27 years at Google, one of the most legendary engineers the company has ever had, credited with some of its most important technical breakthroughs, and he's leaving entirely to start his own company called Discovery Loop, alongside fellow long-term Googler Sanjay Gehemawat, plus a couple of other very well-known names from Google's AI research world. It's apparently an amicable exit. Google's actually investing in the new venture and providing cloud compute. But losing someone like Dean is still enormous. Alphabet shares dropped about 5% on the news, and reportedly suggests this follows a pattern of senior research departures from DeepMind over the past couple of months, off the back of what's been described as a low morale around delays to Gemini. Right. Following on from the RAM and Pixel 11 story a couple of episodes ago, turns out it's not just phone memory that's the problem. It's graphics cards too. And it's honestly worse than I expected. The NVIDIA RTX 5090, which launched at under $2,000, is now regularly listing above $4,300. That's roughly £3,220 for one single graphics card. Some reports even have pushing it past $5,000, like in markets like South Korea. Nvidia's actually cancelled its planned super refresh of the RTX 50 series entirely, because the whole point of the super refresh is usually more memory, and more memory is needed, and the memory needed is exactly the component that's in the short supply. So the fix for the shortage needed the thing causing the shortage, which is a bit of a joke, and the internet noticed. Nvidia also released a set of free collectible trading cards this summer, celebrating GeForce history, and it got roasted online. Got roasted for it online. 14 cards, 0 silicon was the joke doing the rounds. And this isn't staying connected to PC gamers either. Nintendo's raised the Switch 2 price by $50. Sony's hiked PS5 prices again, which I'm lucky I got my PS5 last year. Otherwise it'd be probably like £500 more expensive. And Valve's put up the price of the Steam Deck by around $240, all citing the exact same memory shortage. It's the same story as the Pixel 11 we talked about. The data center boom is quietly draining the world's memory supply, and it's you buying a games console or a graphics card who's footing the bill. This one's been rumbling for months, and it's finally officially closed. Electronic Arts, the studio behind EA Sports FC, EA Sports F1, Battlefield, The Sims, and Apex Legends, is no longer a publicly traded company. The $55 billion buyout, that's around £41 billion, has completed, led by a consortium of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, private equity firm Silver Lake, and Affinity Partners, the investment firm founded by Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law. It's officially the largest leveraged buyout in history, bigger than Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. Shareholders were paid $210 a share, a 25% premium on where the stock was trading before the deal leaked last September. EA's now delisted from the Nasdaq entirely, and PIF holds the overwhelming majority stake, north of 90%, and Kushner's affinity partners holding a smaller slice. Kushner's actually put out a statement on the closing calling EA's outputs stories, characters, and communities that have become part of everyday lives for hundreds of millions of people. Which is a genuinely strange sentence to read from the man closing a $55 billion leveraged buyout. There's real unease from players and industry watchers about what new ownership means for EA's more socially liberal titles. The Sims being the obvious one people keep bringing up, but EA says it's still business as usual under CEO Andrew Wilson. It's weird at the moment because it feels like everything is now owned by the Saudis. Now it's time for the Rumour Round-up. Apple's iPhone 18 Pro design has apparently already leaked, and not in the way Apple would like. Reportedly through a breach at Tata manufacturing plant in India. Leaked photos show a grey, slab-shaped handset undergoing drop tests with 3 rear cameras and a smoother transition between the glass back and the unibody aluminium design. Rumoured internals include Apple's new A20 Pro chip, its own in-house C2 modem, a bigger vapor chamber for cooling, and a larger battery. Though, obviously, none of this is anywhere near confirmed by Apple itself. Worth flagging too, some of this same leaked data reportedly includes logic board schematics, so this could end up being a bigger story than just a couple of photos. Quick hits. Nintendo, Sony, and Valve have all quietly raised prices on the Switch 2, PS5, and Steam Deck respectively. Every single one of them now pointing to the same memory shortage we just covered. The Kids Online Safety Act has been cleared in the US Senate Commerce Committee, moving one step closer to becoming law. China's unveiled an NVIDIA-powered, quad-legged robot wolf, just weeks after a reported armed version turned up in joint military drills in Mongolia. Quick word, this show still doesn't have a sponsor. Every episode is made out of pocket on my own time because I genuinely enjoy talking about this stuff, not because anyone's paying me to. If you're a company that wants to change that, my inbox is always open. The techstackpodcast@gmail.com. Until then, it's just me doing this because I love it. Still nothing in the inbox this week, so consider this another open invite. If you've got a question about anything we've covered, or a general tech question you're curious about, send it to the techstackpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll read a couple out and answer them properly on a future episode. That's everything for this week. Quick heads up before I let you go. We've got a massive bonus episode in the works. More on that very soon. If you're enjoying the show, can you subscribe, please? Genuinely, it makes a difference. I'd love to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year. And every single one of you subscribing gets me closer to that. And if you got a spare 30 seconds, leaving a 5-star rating or review, 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts genuinely helps more than you'd think. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts, Overcasts, and YouTube. So find us wherever's easiest for you. Also, if you want to find out more about me or the show, there's the website bio.site/Theo Galley-Tonks, all one word. And the show's also up on my YouTube channel, so come find me there too. All our sources and timestamps for today's stories are in the show notes. And if you've got a question for the mailbag, drop us an email at thetechstackpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next Friday. The Tech Stack Podcast is a Tech Stack production. This show is edited and hosted by Theo Galley-Tonks. This show is hosted on rss.com.